Hello, welcome. Happy Thursday, everyone. It's a happy Thursday here on the Talk-Ons show. We are going to talk about week 8 of college football. That's right. Welcome back. We have your host, Tim Sportens, and your co-host.
BEVO Vic. And if you need an
Why?
explanation, if anybody needs an explanation as to why I chose BEVO Vic, well, BEVO attacked UGA in the Sugar Bowl in 2020. I think that's when it was. And UGA's a dog. Enough said. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know, I may be Tim Sportens, but this ain't your Canadians football, that we're talking about here today.
Also, I don't know why you went Canadian, because I knew it was Canadian because the A, but like you were speaking like improper English as well. They speak like normal English.
I'm not a normal Canadian, I ain't no normal Canadian.
Well, I guess they have accent, but they don't like incorrectly they don't use incorrect grammar.
Bro, shut up. Let's get on with college football. This is the Talk-Ons.
We've lost all our Canadian viewers thanks to you.
The objectively best college football talk show on the internet. Where we're always right. All right, let me get us all set up. All right.
It's like watching the new headset, it means it's muted.
That's great, dude. You're so cool.
Okay, it matches the hat too. Look at that.
All right, so yeah, here we are. We're back on a Thursday doing a previews and picks episode. We're going to do some re-rank too of our top 15. Is there anything to gloss over?
I mean, we mentioned that we missed our reactions episode just because of I was out of town, so that kind of happened. We didn't have an opportunity to get that going. So we're here now. So we're going to give our top 15 this time around, and then we're just going to do predictions as well. So that's the layout today.
Yeah, we've been on a bit of a vacation, I'm drinking Tim Hortons coffee. That's why I'm doing this shtick. Tim Sportons.
And I'm drinking
Canada's favorite coffee. I don't know how to say Canada for some reason.
I'm drinking a mystery liquid out of this Solo cup.
Bro's drinking freaking liquid.
I guess I can't do that. That's
cup.
Josh Pate's thing. Like the mystery liquid in the chalice. Damn, that's his thing. Are we going to get copyright for that?
Let's talk about that.
Okay, that's definitely going to get us copyright. It's going to be that one guy who sends the emails this direct link.
Speaking of copyright.
Mythical.
Okay, well, so we had some good games this past weekend. Should we just go ahead and jump into the re-rank?
I guess we just jump into the re-rank and maybe just whatever games kind of happened within our top 15. We can just kind of maybe gloss over a little bit.
I'm tired, dude. This is a tired Thursday, folks.
Same. And
working hard and hardly working, You know, I always forget to look at the actual camera when I'm trying to have that effect. Just looking all around. Camera 1.
I feel like I'd make the viewers uncomfortable just looking at the camera, Nobody wants me uncomfortable
just looking. All right, let's okay, guys, so we're about to go ahead and just jump right in. We're going to try and be short and sweet today. Talk-Ons objective best top 15 week 8 version. Go ahead and pop that up there. Poop pop.
Okay, all right. I didn't know we were going to act like we're 12.
All right, here we go. Here we go, y'alls. So, first glance, you can already see it's the best top 15 anyone's ever made. Let's all right. So let's start from the top down, right?
Honestly, I think pretty quickly, the only true explanation we need for like the top three is just Ohio State, and it's like I'm not dropping them below three. It's a 1 point loss to Oregon. I mean, we all know Texas is number one. They've looked the best. They have the best roster. Well, they have the most. They've gotten the most effectiveness out of their current roster. Out of like one of they have definitely without a doubt, probably argument for first, second, or third best roster wherever, but they've gotten the most out of it. So
They're definitely one of the
um,
most complete teams. I think the top three are the most complete teams. You know, they take that elite talent and they're the most
yeah,
complete is the best way to put it. And I mean, Texas is it's they're all kind of three in the same class for me. But I mean, we got this. The rankings are what they are because of the way the season's gone so far. And I mean, Texas is going to be able to show us. I mean, they already beat the brakes off of Oklahoma. So I mean, and Oklahoma's their offense is non-existent, but they're not a bad team. They have a great defense, and Oklahoma could have won that game. With turnovers if they had gotten enough of those because their defense is good enough. But I mean, it is
I
what it
just think
is.
that
So
their
I mean,
offense just
Texas
had no
very
defense.
convincing blowout win. Say what?
I just Oklahoma did not stand a chance off. I mean, because even if they got a turnover, they weren't scoring off of it. So
Yeah, Oklahoma. Just yeah. I mean, that's the best team Texas has really played this year. Um, but a team with no offense whatsoever. So,
I don't think
but
Texas has played a good. But
not
we'll
to
get
take
into that in the you know. I don't think
and
anybody's going to really disagree with the fact that we got Texas at number one. Like, I mean, there can be an argument for Oregon at number one because they have a top five. They're the only, excuse me, they're the only like team in the top
Texas hasn't struggled with anybody.
but
Oregon
Oregon
kind
did
of had a rough
also
start. Texas hasn't. Texas has been on
so
it all season. So, and I mean,
um
Michigan that counts for something, but
in Ohio
them,
State we're not going to
them
punish
beating
them
them. But
and drop them more than one spot just for losing 1 point to a team
right,
that we
a
think
one
deserves a
point
second spot,
loss.
so and it was
Right,
in
and I think
and it
Ohio
was in
State
Eugene, so it's like, you know, I think that
play. It's pretty much kind of a pick 'em. Play that in Columbus, and it might go Ohio State's
yeah,
way.
it might be a 1 point win for Ohio State.
50-50.
So
It's like a 50-50 between those two almost.
and I think Georgia 4-5 in Penn State is probably the one that that might be a little bit of disagreement. But this is my argument. I know Penn State's undefeated, but they also haven't played I mean, Georgia's only one loss is another team we have in the top 10. So I just, and you probably agree with me on this. I just think that if you were to put Penn State and Georgia in a stadium neutral site together, um, I think it's going to come down because I think both teams are going to struggle to move the ball on the line of scrimmage. And I just don't think Penn State's beating Georgia in the air because I just don't because I'm not going to sit here and act like Carson Beck's the greatest quarterback of all time, but the man can still put almost 500 yards on a team. So Aller's not doing that. He's just not. I don't have any confidence in Aller as a slinging it quarterback. So unless they can get, is it Singleton? I think that's Penn State's
Yeah,
running back.
Singletary, Singleton or Singletary. I think it's Singleton and Allen. Those are their two. That's like their duo.
Like they'll probably produce more on the line of scrimmage than Georgia would, but I just don't. I think
And
that both
they,
teams are forced to throw. I just think that the better
I
quarterback
mean, even
wins.
that's
And Carson
arguable,
Beck
though. I
isn't the
think.
greatest quarterback of all time, but he's definitely better than Drew Aller. So, and I think
Look, the thing about it is, Penn State is a sussy. That just is what it is. Penn State. Um, I am not yet a believer in Penn State to put them in the top four. I think Georgia is just got a better roster. I think they're a more talented team. I think they've got a better head coach. They've got a better quarterback. I think they both have a comparable defensive line. When Georgia's defensive line is fully healthy, I think Georgia has the better defensive line. I think they both have so-so secondaries. So, I mean,
I think
at
I
the end
think
of the
you have
day, I think
Smile
Georgia
Munden on the
probably would
field
even
for
be more
Georgia.
productive
I think
on
if
the
you were to
ground.
if Georgia had Smile Munden back and they I think the defense for Georgia's better
Georgia fully
um
healthy beats Penn State. That's just it is what it is.
and
But
honestly I've been kind of I would say if Alabama's defense wasn't so just rickety right now, I just
rickety.
would think about putting them over Penn State, but they just look letting Vandy win is one thing. Letting them put 40 on you is another. So yeah, Alabama's got a great offense, of course, but that defense is. And also, let me mention this: Jalen Milroe, I do not think is good enough to really crank out tier one A1 quarterback play in games where he needs to. If he's behind, he struggled in the Vanderbilt game when he truly needed to get it going. Struggled in the South Carolina game. He just didn't look good in that game. I just I mean, and Alabama has a lot of things they got to work on. They made a lot of mistakes in that South Carolina game. I mean, Sellers, if South Carolina has a better quarterback, you're probably losing that game. Sellers just, for some reason, dumped it off with a minute left downfield into double coverage, 10 yards ahead of his receiver. So don't know what that
I mean, I
was,
think
but
you are losing. I think Alabama loses that game if South Carolina has a better quarterback. But I think South Carolina is a good team. I think what they're missing is a good quarterback in that puzzle because South Carolina, they got a great run game. They have a great defense. I think the main thing South Carolina is missing is the quarterback play and maybe high level weapons, in on the edge, but I still think that's a good team. And Alabama, I think it was the best. I think it was the best defensive front that Alabama's played all season, and I think that's why Alabama had such a hard time with them. Because I mean, even when they played Georgia, I mean Georgia has been down to like the third string on their defensive line for most of the season so far. So, you know, but Alabama, regardless of that, very talented team. I mean, I still have faith in DeBoer that they're going to stay a good competitor. They have one of the best offenses and most explosive offenses in the country. They're going to put points on you. So that a Saban built team with the offensive power that they have, we'll still put them in the top 10. We'll still put them at 6. Um,
if
so
they had better defense, because I think they had the better offense than Penn State, but I think Penn State's defense is better by a mile. So
right, Penn State's that's their strong point is their defense, particularly on the line, and their offensive line is great. Penn State has one of the best offensive lines in the country. Penn State might, you know, beat Alabama at the line of scrimmage. Uh, but it just depends because you have the factor of the talent, the skill positions. Jam Miller and Milrow. And Ryan Williams. He's 17, by the way. Hey, um, a lot of explosiveness that might not save a team like Penn State, but I think Penn State. Yeah, I mean, Penn State has earned their spot in the top 10, but I'm not putting them in the top 4 because I think the 4 teams we have above them are better. So
yeah,
now LSU, they've been a little wishy-washy all season, but I mean, they got a good win against Ole Miss.
I mean, wishy-washy is a tough thing to say when you've won 5 in a row since your first loss. Like, I mean, first game they lost to my thing is I just think that this is evidence of when a team just wasn't quite prepared that first season. Because obviously, I know they lost to USC, but it's very evident that LSU's the better team. Play them again, I think LSU wins, no doubt. So, um, I think LSU just
Well,
needed
I say
they
that
needed that extra
because
kick.
of their struggles. I say that because of their
Well, they struggled with
struggles at
South
South
Carolina,
Carolina, and they
but
technically
I
should
mean,
have
you just
lost that game,
you
but
just gave them help on that because I
but
mean, like you
South
think South
Carolina's a
Carolina's a
good
good
team.
team.
That's a good team.
I don't think they're all that great, but I still think LSU's a good team.
I think LSU. I think it was the matchup because South Carolina has a hell of a rushing attack, and LSU's rushing defense is just, yeah.
And
But
I just think LSU has good
yeah.
wins as well, and
Okay, they got some pretty good wins. I mean, they're a very talented team. Brian Kelly's kind of finding a groove with them. Nussmeier is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and I mean, they got weapons, they got skill players that can tear up the field. They have a great offensive line. They're good on the line. Um, they beat Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss has an argument for the top 15, but we had to come to a compromise, so they're not in this top 15. But they beat Ole Miss in a good game. Um, I mean, I think LSU. There's still some questions to be answered, but I think they deserve the number 7 spot
if they can get
nonetheless.
Perkins back sooner than later, then that'll help out a lot too, because they've been missing Perkins, and they're going to be missing him this weekend. But we'll talk about that. Now Tennessee, they're at number 8. Tough loss to Arkansas, but they kept it close, and it was in Arkansas. The only thing is that 14 points is tough. That's just not good. But I believe that I mean, like, sort of Nico's first big road game as a freshman. So I think you just kind of have to chalk it up as that. I still think Nico, I've heard people call him a bust. That's BS. He's not a bust.
No, he's definitely not
He's
a
played
bust.
just fine this season. He's a freshman. He's not going to go out there and just throw for 400 yards any place he goes. Like, it's extremely rare you get that out of any freshman. So he made some freshman mistakes, made himself look a little stupid in the Arkansas game, but he's young, true freshman, but I think he'll be perfectly fine moving forward. I think he's a good quarterback, great potential. He's only going to learn. He's only going to learn and get better, anyways. So, and Tennessee's defense is also much better than anybody expected to. Obviously, we expected them to be under a Josh Heupel, a way more offensive team, but their defense has been pretty good. I think Arkansas, that's the most any team scored on them, and it was 19 points. So they have a really good defense. Granted, it's going to be tested this weekend. It will be tested pretty hard this weekend. But we'll get we'll see. We'll get to that. And Clemson, I don't know what to say other than the fact that their only losses to a top 5 team. It was a beat down, but it was first game, and it was a top 5 team. Since then, they've been on a tear. What we thought was their biggest weakness in their
Right.
offense. Their offense has been averaging 40, 50 points a game since that. That game has screwed up their average points per game just because they scored only 3, but they've scored a ton every game since then. And they've pretty much just done what they needed to since then. They look like a good team. They look very good.
It was tough. It was tough between them and Miami on these spots, though. Like, this was kind of a tough decision because Clemson and Miami are pretty comparable as far as the build of their team and how they play. They're both mostly offense oriented. I think Clemson has a slightly better defense. I think Clemson is just a
I don't
little
even think
better in the
slightly.
trenches in
I think
Miami.
I I think Clemson's much better in the trenches. I mean, Clemson's always got one
Well,
of the
yeah,
best
that's
lines. So, but I
yeah,
think
but
Miami's
do they
probably
this
much
year?
better. I still think Miami's probably much better offensively, just because I think in tough situations, I think Cam Ward's coming out on top over Cade Klubnik. So
Probably, but that also depends on, you know, we haven't seen Cam Ward play against a tough
true.
defense like Clemson, at least stout defense. So I think for me it just kind of came down to them both having similar offensive production, um, but Clemson having the better defense, uh, and
And Miami just
Dabo
showing
being the
that
head coach. Miami's
that
just
and
struggled
Miami's
with
just
mid teams,
Miami's gotten
so
away with some games too.
yeah, they probably
So
should have
those
lost one,
the
so
Cal and Virginia Tech game, they kind of just got away with some lucky,
I mean,
you know.
the Virginia Tech game. A lot of people talk about that. No, that was that the
I
call
mean,
that
yeah,
ended up being that
the
was the
call
right
was,
call. Like Miami won that game,
but
but yeah, they probably should have lost to Cali. Um, but we won't get too deep into that. We've already ragged
either
on
way, whether or not it's
officiating.
a win or not, those are not very great teams that you should be struggling that much against if you want to hang
Right.
with the big dogs. Because yeah, Georgia 10-point win over Mississippi State, but they didn't really struggle. Like you were never worried about Mississippi State coming back and winning at any point. It just was like, okay, it's just frustrating, especially as a fan. It's like it's frustrating to just see your team like let that bad of a team score that many. But it's like I wasn't worried about them losing at any point.
Clemson and Miami are more so in spots where we see their potential, their what their potential is. Neither
Yeah,
of them have played a really tough opponent yet, other than Clemson. And I mean, Clemson got manhandled, mostly in the second half of that game. But once again, week one, they didn't find their identity until later.
yeah,
But
and
this one's going to be a tricky one to justify with A
I
and M
know
and
most
Notre
people,
Dame.
yeah, all the head-to-head fans are screaming at us right now, but
The
we've
head-to-head
said it before.
absolutists.
We've said before that we don't feel head-to-head is an absolute. Um, you know,
It depends
especially
on the
when that head-to-head was
circumstance and the
first game of the
timing and
season.
everything.
It's the
Yeah.
first game of the season too. I'm sorry. I just A&M after they got a good win against Arkansas, and Arkansas has shown to be a much better team than we expected. They absolutely derailed Missouri, and I don't think Missouri's trash. Obviously, I don't think they're great. They're not in our top 15 anymore. I mean, you can't get blown out by a team that's not in our, like that's barely in our top 15, and then expect. I mean, it's just. But I still don't think Missouri's a bad team. No matter what, to treat an SEC team like they are your, you know, FCS team you chose to play the week for scrimmage. It's like to beat them 41-10 like that, like they're just a cupcake team, just another scrimmage game out of the week. It's like that's a big deal, I think, no matter what. And Notre Dame just doesn't. And I know Notre Dame is Texas A&M's only loss, but it is first game of the season, and Notre Dame lost to NIU. Bad loss, and NIU's only gotten like NIU's just not good. So I
I
just
try not to hold upsets as absolute either, but I mean, at this point in the season, A&M is just they're probably a better team at this point. And yeah, I
again
mean,
like
Missouri is not super great, but they're still a top 25 worthy
it's
program.
like
They're still a
I
top
get
25
yeah, I
team.
get I get the head-to-head mentality, but my belief, the way that I'm kind of thinking about this is that again, you put A&M and Notre Dame on the field together again now, I think A&M beats them. I think A&M's the better team now. I think they found their footing. Uh, their quarterback, I think, found his stride as well. He's played very well the past couple of games. So that's my justification for that. Notre Dame, only one loss, and it's an upset. Um, and they've gotten a solid win against Louisville. I think they'll actually have a bit of their work cut out for them. I think Tech is a good team, so they play Tech in Atlanta this weekend. So we'll see what Notre Dame has to show for with that. If they can come out with a really big blowout win on Tech, then I
Yeah,
think
it
that
won't be a cakewalk, I
know,
don't think. But
no,
Notre Dame, number 12, I think that's their AP rank, isn't it?
yeah.
So yeah, we've got
So
Notre Dame at their AP rank. I mean, I agree with that. Honestly, I think that's a good rank on the AP's part. Um, now we move to the outsiders, the outside looking in on the 12-team field. Boise State, the Boise State
Idaho,
Broncos, and that Heisman runner Ashton Genty, that immaculate defensive front as far as the pass rush is concerned.
yeah. I know Boise State's one loss, and we have them above two undefeated teams, but I think I think the loss is, funny enough, what helps them the most in this,
Yeah, I mean,
because
you
their
can't take it
loss
away from them
is that number 2 right there, and it was by a field goal.
in
So,
Eugene.
so Boise State's proved that they can hang with a big dog.
To be
BYU and
able to keep,
Indiana
yeah,
haven't played a big dog yet. So, and Boise State, obviously, Ashton Junty, they got Junty. They got the best running back in the country. If not the best player in the country right now. And yes, statistically one of the best defensive fronts. So I just, face value with what these teams have, Boise State can produce on both sides of the ball much better than either of these teams. Junty, I think, would run over any of these teams, BYU or Indiana, and then you got to try and stop that defensive front. So that's why we got Boise State above them, because they've great. I mean, Junty, great defensive line statistically, and they've also, the fact that their defensive line still has the statistics it has too, with that Oregon loss on the spreadsheet, also says a lot too. So
yeah.
that's
I
why
mean,
I
that
think they
Oregon
belong at
loss,
13 above them.
loss or not, right? It's kind of the same justification with Ohio State. Ohio State lost to them by 1 point in Eugene. They're still a top three worthy team. I still think they're one of the best rosters and most complete teams in the country. Boise State hung with Oregon, scored over 30 points on them, and Oregon had to win, squeeze out the win by a field goal in their home turf. So Boise State hasn't played much competition outside of that, and they're not going to for the most part for the rest of the year. But they've made a statement against Oregon, whether they lost or not. So I think, as far as they're concerned, I think they're the Group of Five team that gets in once we start talking
Yeah.
about playoff berths. So,
And then BYU and Indiana was actually a pretty tough
boys, you
choice,
underestimate.
because they're both undefeated. But the problem with BYU, or the problem with Indiana, is that I kind of think Indiana, because BYU's had close games against not so great teams, and Indiana hasn't had a single close game yet. They've just blown out everybody. The thing is, though, is that BYU has blown out a ranked team in Kansas State, and they have 2 ranked wins. One of them, the other win being SMU, and I guess SMU is nothing to throw a stick at. I guess but I don't think
I
they're
mean, they're a
amazing.
good team this year. I mean, they beat Louisville. They've shown that they can beat a pretty good opponent, Power Four opponent. So, which, I mean, SMU is Power Four now. So, um,
So, um,
I think, yeah, I mean, it's kind of for me, it's kind of just like a up in the air thing. I think Indiana has a better offense than BYU, but BYU has still beaten two ranked teams, and Indiana hasn't really played anybody yet. So, you know, regardless of running the score on them, it's like, it's hard to gauge it. I think BYU's played slightly better competition, and they may, BYU may arguably have a better defense than Indiana. So it's kind of like a matchup type thing. So I think BYU, outside of a direct matchup, it could go either way for me. But I think BYU, resume wise, takes the 14 spot, and Indiana comes in 15 because I think Indiana's got their stuff together this year. I think they're a competitor this year. Um, Playoffs, I don't know, maybe. But right now, I think they're worthy of the top 15. I think they have one
they're
of the best offenses in the country. They're
I
top
mean,
10 on paper. They're top 10 in both total offense and total defense.
they don't
Granted, they
have a
haven't
lot of
really played anybody.
competition. They don't have a lot of competition this season. I think the only crazy good team they play is Ohio State. So, I mean, little upset over Ohio State, and they're in the Big Ten championship most likely. So,
Well,
and
I'm
Oregon.
not gonna act like uh, a couple of their games coming up aren't going to be challenges for them. So we'll see, and we'll talk about one of those when we get to the previews, which I guess we're about to get into now.
Might as well go ahead and do
Um,
it. Get to
all
it.
right, well, making pretty decent time today, I guess. So let's go ahead, and we're only going to do, just because this weekend's so. And granted, people have, every time people think that, it seems we get surprised, but mainly for the sake of time and kind of balancing things out as we go. We're only going to cover 5 games today.
And I'll mention this, now that by this weekend, I think we'll have a good bit of information on conferences and stuff. We're going to actually start giving our actual playoff prediction. Like we're going to
start doing playoff predictions.
We'll do like an official 12 where we pick the conference champions at the top 4, the power 4, and then we have our at-large teams. And then we'll probably have some that we'll still have 13 through 15, but it'll be just like the outside looking in, which I'm assuming would probably just end up being like group of 5s that we think could probably sneak their way in. So,
all right. Well, this has been the Talk-Ons official objectively better and correct top 15. That's right. So hope you enjoyed that, eh? Don't at us, eh? But anyway, so that's that. And now we can move on to our predictions, previews, and picks for this weekend.
Yep.
So we're both going to do 2 games each independently, more or less, and then we're going to do our game of the week together. So
who do we want to start?
Well, I mean, I guess since we were talking about Indiana, I guess I'll do their game first.
All right.
So we have Indiana and Nebraska. Nebraska playing at Indiana. Nebraska's not ranked, but I think considering what Nebraska can do and the competition that Indiana has played, making it kind of hard to gauge, I think this one can be a little tricky, honestly. I think Indiana has one of the top offenses right now in the country as far as like top 15 offenses. Sorry, I was making the banner for it. It's tricky. It's tricky because Nebraska, like I said, I think Nebraska has a capable offense. Nebraska's defense, so. Indiana, like I said, on paper is top 10, both offensively and defensively. Nebraska is ranked in the top 30 in certain aspects that are important, like passing defense and things like that when they go to play. Something that'll be very important when they play Indiana. So sorry, my little iPad here is being difficult. So this is a tricky one. I think it could really kind of go either way. Jeez, because you got pretty talented offense in Nebraska, like I said. Defense, so. Indiana, great offense. I think because they're playing in Indiana, and I think because Indiana just has the offense that they have, I think it's going to be, and maybe a slightly better defense than Nebraska. I think it's going to be Indiana. And I think Indiana wins pretty convincingly. I take them by 10. I think Indiana beats Nebraska by 10.
So Indiana to cover. Yeah, I mean, I probably won't give a direct pick, but I guess I kind of agree. I don't see Nebraska stopping Indiana's offense, and I mean they're at Indiana, and Nebraska still has a freshman quarterback in Dylan Raiola, so
right.
I just don't see him producing enough.
And Curtis Rourke is showing to be one of the best QBs in the country. So I mean,
but I think if Indiana can get a really, really big win here, like really beat up on Nebraska, I think then an argument for then some serious arguments for them in like Big Ten contention and like what we're talking about, like, okay, maybe we do start putting them above BYU. So
yeah. But that's my pick for this game. We'll see. Like I said, it's a little tricky this time, but I think I trust Indiana this year. I'm going to take them by 10. So that's that. Your turn.
So the Talk-Ons take Indiana to cover.
Yes.
So
Eh?
I guess I'll talk about Miami at Louisville. We think that's a big one because Louisville is they're a solid team in the
I
ACC,
think
and
they're in my top 25. So
Miami, they'd be in my top 25 as well. Miami is, because Louisville's only losses are to Notre Dame and another ranked team,
SMU,
SMU.
which
So
was a
it's just
very
those two,
close
and they were
game.
both close games. They're both one-score games. Um, so with that being said, so one problem for Miami is that Miami has a lot of DBs who are questionable to play. I mean, they've got like 5 DBs questionable to play. So that's really going to hurt them, especially because like Louisville, not amazing through the air, but like they can produce if they need to.
Their offense was
This one's actually really
pretty
tough.
productive against Notre Dame.
Miami's favored -4.5. Last time I checked. So this was a really tough game because, with all the struggles Miami's had, I'm just going to assume they're going to struggle with Louisville too. And I thought after they struggled with, the first struggle game they had, where it was decided by the catch or no catch or whatever, I'm like, oh, you're not going to struggle again against, mediocre competition because maybe you've learned your lesson and you know where to go from here. Nope, they end up struggling again. So I'm only led to believe that they're going to struggle again. And this is at Louisville, which is not a super hard or super easy place to play. But I think, I think he's just a really good quarterback. Cam Ward's a really good quarterback. I think Miami's going to be able to score a lot. I don't think Louisville's defense is good enough to prevent Miami from scoring a lot. So I think Cam Ward's going to put it in the air. He's going to run and he's going to pick up the yards and score. However, I think Louisville's also going to score a good amount of points. So I think I'm going to
Right.
take Miami to win, with Louisville to cover. So I'm going to take Miami by 3, by a field goal probably. I think Louisville covers, but Miami wins.
Okay. So BEVO Vic has got Miami beating Louisville by 3. Talk-Ons take Miami beats Louisville by 3. And I think, granted, there weren't a lot of games from a big slate to pick this week, which kind of helped us out to kind of condense it this episode. But Miami and Louisville, make no mistake, this is going to be a good game. Louisville is a good opponent. This is going to be one of Miami's toughest games so far. So there's a lot of implications here for the ACC if Miami loses, and a lot of questions to be answered for Miami, mainly about consistency at a high level.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they do here with Miami, but
Well,
that's that. Or
maybe they'll
Louisville, I
be
mean.
known to consistently struggle at a high level.
Yeah, okay. They haven't done that at high level opponents, so we'll see. I mean, I think I agree though. So
I mean, Louisville's not very high level, but still, I think they're a good team.
all right.
Okay.
So the next one is a big one. We got a big one here, folks. I'm gonna talk a little bit about this one right here. Um, we got good old fashioned Alabama Crimson Tide versus the Tennessee Volunteers, and this year it's as big as ever. Um, Unfortunately for DeBoer and Alabama, they're playing at Rocky Top, which is something important to keep in mind. Um, and this is a historic rivalry against two historic programs. And like I said, this year it probably means just as much as ever because this is kind of like the SEC is up for grabs right now. And for both of these teams, their berth is kind of on the line, as far as comparing to the other teams that have, their hands on the SEC. So Alabama, we already talked about Alabama and Tennessee about what these teams have. Bama, explosive offense, one of the most talented offenses in the country. Saban built team, one of the most explosive offenses in the country. Excuse me. But have they played a defense like Tennessee's? Because and people don't talk a lot about it, but Tennessee has a really good defense. They are a top defense this year, and they're just balanced. Tennessee is a fairly complete team. They're a fairly balanced team, and they have a really good rushing attack. One of the best running backs in the SEC. Lavea, freshman, but I think he'll be comfortable in Rocky Top. And if Lavea has a good game,
Yamaleava.
What did I say?
Yamalavea.
Oh, Yamaleava. Anyway, I can't. But how many times have I
Idiot.
said that wrong?
Every time.
Sorry. Yamaleava has a good game in Rocky Top because Tennessee. I think this game's going to be decided by defense. I think Tennessee has the better defense, and I think because of that, I think Tennessee wins.
So he's calling the upset, which
we got an
I
upset alert,
agree.
folks.
I think if Nico shows up, it's Tennessee's game all the way. And he has yet to not show up to Rocky Top. So maybe some freshman jitters playing Alabama is what Bama needs to happen to Nico. So but I think Tennessee takes it as well.
I'm gonna say, yeah, we got an upset alert, folks. Wee woo, wee woo. That's our upset alert sound effect, I guess. We still have not made anything for anything like that. But anyway, yeah, I mean, Alabama's going to score points. I mean, they're going to score points. Um, but at the same time, put Milrow against this Tennessee defense this year in Rocky Top, and does he perform the same? Because he struggled against South Carolina, which is a really good defense. I think Tennessee has a good defense, probably better than South Carolina's, or I mean, I guess it is better. So I'm taking Tennessee by 5, just because I think plays like a safety are bound to happen. So I think this game comes down to defense, and Tennessee wins this by 5. I think Tennessee upsets Bama in
All
Rocky
right.
Top. I think Tennessee's going to be smoking the cigars this year, boys.
So it seems.
Speaking of upsets for Bama, Tennessee.
Speaking of upsets,
what do we have here? What do we have here? What you got, Debo?
LSU is going into Arkansas as a 2.5 point favorite. I think this game is 100% a pick 'em, but I think what's really going to be the determining factor is home field advantage, because I think they're right. And the reason is because obviously LSU has a better passing attack, but Arkansas has a way better rushing attack. LSU can barely move the ball on the ground at all this season. They're like 99th in rushing yards per game, and that's just
right.
Arkansas's got a good defensive front against the run. They did a pretty damn good job of holding back Tennessee from running all over them too. So I think LSU is going to be forced to be one-dimensional. And while Nussmeier is good, I think Arkansas, after the way they played against Tennessee, they showed that their secondary can really get out there and cover up when needed. So I think with Arkansas, I think coming off that, I think they're going to just be in the zone, ready to play after that win against Tennessee. Stadium's going to be rocking because after beating a top 4 team like that, or whatever Tennessee was, after beating a team like that, that stadium's going to be ready to put LSU to, because now LSU's coming in as a top 10 team. So 2 top 10 wins in a row for Arkansas, I think, is going to happen. But I think they only win, I'll say, I think they win this by a field goal as well. I don't think it's anything more than a field goal. So
You're
I think
taking
Arkansas
Arkansas to
upsets
win.
LSU, yeah, by a field
Wee
goal.
woo. Wee woo. Upset alert, fellas. Talk on style. I don't know, man. We got Bevo Vic calling LSU at Arkansas. Arkansas wins by 3. Upset. He thinks Arkansas is going to get the double upset, double top 10 upset back to back. I don't know, man. I think it's kind of going to be decided in the trenches, as you said at the end of the day.
Also, I meant to mention, speaking of trenches, Perkins is out too. Again, I mentioned that earlier, but that's a key factor here. Perkins is out. Arkansas gets
Right.
Kutas back, their starting right tackle. So, and they're getting Taylon Green back, which he's not an amazing quarterback, but he did his job in the Tennessee game. So,
I think it's hard to say because Iyama Leava's kind of a big reason, like him being a freshman and his performance is kind of a big reason Arkansas was able to pull off the upset. I don't think Nussmeier's going to make the same mistakes Iyama Leava did, so it's hard for me to say. But this is definitely one of the best defenses LSU is going to play. One of the best rushing attacks they've played. So we'll see. I mean, I that's fair enough. It's fair enough. They're playing at Arkansas. Arkansas is on a they're on their run. So we'll see. LSU, I think LSU is a little rickety. I still think they're a little fragile. I think one
well,
good
we'll see.
matchup and LSU's down. So, but anyway, now, folks, I believe it is time to talk
Game of the
about
week,
the game of the week.
and that
Week,
is
week.
Michigan at Illinois.
Oh my
No,
God.
it's pretty obvious. It's gonna be the Dogs at the Longhorns.
We think Illinois
University
and
of
Michigan's
Georgia
going to be
at
a game. Don't
Texas.
don't get it twisted. But I think that has that has Big Ten implications for Illinois, but it's just not for the slots that we had.
Yeah,
It
but
was
does Illinois actually even exist?
true. Chat, is Illinois real?
Sorry, Illinois fans and residents.
I
We don't
think
think you're real.
Michigan. I'm going to throw this out there because I just want to, because I love hating on Michigan this season. Michigan does not belong in the top 25, and uh, it just doesn't seem like it's going to be an interesting game compared to the other ones. So not a lot
It'll
of
be
playoff
close. I was
implications.
about to
The
say it'll
games
be
we
close, but
chose this,
it'll probably be close, but it's not going to be good. I don't
the
think.
games we chose today
Maybe it
were
will.
for more so oriented on playoff implications.
All right. Well,
But game of the week,
yeah, UGA at Texas. So
UGA at Texas.
last time I checked, the line is up to now. Texas is now a 5-point favorite. I don't really know what changed in the weeks. I mean, the injury report I didn't think was any different than it was when they had the 3.5-point line. But
I don't know. I think it was just because the injury report was finalized more or less for Georgia, and I mean we got a couple of key players out.
well, I guess since you just had the last, or wait, no, I just did LSU and Arkansas. What I'm talking about. I guess you can go ahead and call your prediction for this one first.
Um, okay. Uh, I think I think people are kind of sleeping on Georgia. I mean, the media last couple of years, Georgia's been kind of one of those hype programs. So I can't really say the media's been down on Georgia. The AP still believes Georgia's a top 5 team. Um, but I think the college football world is kind of sleeping on Georgia. Make no mistake, with all the things they have to clean up, I mean, Georgia's still I believe they're still a top 4 team in the country. Um, I think they have top 4 of talent. I think they have one of the best offenses in the country. If when Bobo calls a good game, I think that offense is great, and mainly because ironically Georgia's stronger in the pass attack this year, and Beck is Beck can rip it, man. He can rip it up. You give him the right scheme, you let him throw it, and he'll rip it up. And we had Georgia has playmakers on the edge. They have good receivers. They have good tight ends. They have skill players like Etienne that can play multiple roles. Georgia has a good offensive line. I mean, with the injuries that we've had, they still have a good offensive line. They protect Beck very well. Now, I think they could be better at run blocking, but they protect Beck well. A healthy Georgia defensive line, I think, is one of the best in the country. But obviously, our defensive line has been missing a lot of guys. Now, there a lot of them are probable, or a couple of them are probable, which is not a guarantee, but still probable for the Texas game. Um, I mean, you're going to need them. Unfortunately, our best linebacker he's going to be out. So that's good. The linebacker core is going to be a little shisty. The secondary is not terrible. I mean, they've been struggling. I think they need to be coached better, cleaned up better. And I think the biggest issue is we just, Georgia just doesn't have much of a pass rush this year because of the slim pickings so far on the defensive line, just how thin it's gotten, which is going to be, I think that's the most important factor. I think Georgia has to get a pass rush going against Texas. I think to talk more about Texas, I think Texas I think right now they just seem like a more complete team. And I think more so because of defensively, they just seem more complete than Georgia. They just know they found their niche and they kind of know what they're doing on defense. Um, Obviously, Texas has one of the best offenses in the country. You got Quinn Ewers at the helm. Um, Quinn Ewers in Texas and Georgia and Carson Beck. Um, I think Texas is really good in the trenches, and this game's gonna the trenches is gonna decide this game. Um, I really think it's gonna be. I don't know, man. This one might be a shootout. It really just might be a shootout because if Georgia's O line performs well, um, they protect Beck, and Bobo calls a good game. I think depending on who Georgia has on the defensive front, if even if they can't get the pass rush going really good, I think it's a shootout. Like I think it's going to be an offensive game. I think it's going to be an aerial shootout. Um, Honestly, I think Georgia can pull this off though. I think Georgia can pull it off. I mean they have the tools, they have the talent, they have the coaching more or less. I mean as far as the head coaching spot is concerned, which we haven't talked much about the assistant coaching on Georgia. I think Georgia's weakness right now, one of their biggest issues, is that the assistant coaching is not up to standard. Um, and I think it's causing a lot of confusion and frustration in the locker rooms and in the coaching rooms. But Texas, I think, is still the best team in the country. They're more complete right now, or they've shown to be. But I think Georgia, honestly, like I said, between the top four, it's pick'ems between the top four. Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Georgia. I think Georgia can win this, and I'm taking Georgia to win it. I think Tuscaloosa has hardened them and conditioned them to be ready to play this game in Austin. And I think Georgia wins. I think Beck shows up. I think he tears it up. And even if the defense doesn't stop good, I think Georgia wins.
Well, I thought long and hard about this one, and I think what this game 100% came down to for me deciding was sentiment. Sort of sentiment and full sentiment. That being that Georgia has their backs completely against the ropes right now in the conference. You lose this, you're pretty much out the conference championship. And so you've lost your first round bye in the playoffs. And, you lose this game, especially if you lose big, then you're starting to, then there's questions of if you even belong in the 12 team playoff. you know.
Right.
So I think Georgia is a cornered animal in going into this game. Um, they've got everything yet nothing to lose. I think I think Texas is the better team all around. I do, as of right now. Definitely better defense. Um, but Georgia's going to have Michael Williams. I think he's going to get a lot more play time. I think he's going to be a lot closer to full health, and I think this is a game that he's going to want to show out in. And
Christian Miller and Jordan Hall should come back too.
right,
Probable, I
and
think.
then Branson Robinson getting injured, I feel like was probably obviously it's not a good thing. You never want a player to get injured, but I think for Georgia, it's probably one of the best things to happen because I think everybody's talking about this game needs to be won at the line of scrimmage. Well, I think you have Nate Frazier in there running. People could say what they want. He's a true freshman. He's shown, I'm going to tell you right now, obviously nobody knows me personally that's watching this, but I know running backs. I every running back that Georgia's ever had that's been the stud running back, or for any other team that's been a stud running back, I can watch just a little bit of play and I know which one's going to break out. And I think Nate Frazier is a breakout running back. I think he's the best running back. I think he's the best true runner on that Georgia offense. And I think he's going to get catapulted into second string now. And so he's going to be on the field pretty often. And I think Georgia's going to be able to chug out some rushing yards and open up the passing lanes for Beck. And again, while Texas has a good defense, I think Dylan Bell and I think Dominic Levitt can really get open on the field this game. And I think if Bobo can kind of scheme around those two, especially Dylan Bell, Beck can throw it. I mean, dude can throw it for 500 yards if he wants. I think people are sleeping too much on Beck because, and I think you're sleeping on Georgia. It's like, let's not forget it is Kirby Smart's Georgia. I do think Texas is the better team, but here's the biggest thing that's like half sentiment. It's also the first really good, or well, I don't want to talk too big on Georgia, but it's also the first top level team that they're playing.
The first
And I think
offense,
Georgia, I think
like
Georgia's going
Georgia's.
to, I think a cornered animal Georgia is going to be the last thing you want to play as your first top level team. Georgia has
Right.
so much to prove now because everybody's talking, oh, is Texas the new Georgia? Also, that needs to stop because it's like the whole thing. Nobody believed that Georgia was the next Bama when people would try to say that. So nobody needs to say Texas, they're top of the world one season so far. Halfway through a season. Let's just cut that talk out right now. Anyways, the point is that Texas has to prove they're the new kings of the SEC this season, or that they are the best team in the country, or whatever, that they can beat them all, or whatever. Um, they have that to prove, but Georgia's got to prove that they are even playoff worthy. They've got to prove that they aren't what everybody thinks they are. They have to prove that they belong in the conference championship running. I think Georgia has so much to prove, and I think that this is just a bad team for Texas to play their first big game, because I think Texas is going to get a little bit of a punch to the jaw. They're getting a little pop in the mouth that they're not ready for, and that pop in the mouth is going to be, you know, by Mike Tyson. You know what I mean? It's like you can get popped in the mouth by
Right.
some people, but the last person you want to get popped in the mouth by, caught off guard, is Mike Tyson, because then you're dazed the rest of the game. And I think that's what it is. I think Georgia is still going to be a close game. I'm not saying this says Georgia's going to go in there and rip apart Texas. I just think that Texas is going, because Georgia's been, they're battle hardened. They've played in Tuscaloosa, and I don't think Austin's going to be crazier than Tuscaloosa. Maybe of the equivalent, but I don't think it's going to be crazier.
I mean, I think
So
Tuscaloosa's a harder place. I think it's a more prominent, harder place to play than
so
than
I
Austin,
think
really.
that
But
Georgia just comes in here, and I think that they overwhelm Texas. Do I still think that means that Georgia's better overall? No, I think if Georgia was to beat Texas now and then they play again, depending upon how the teams develop, if Georgia beat Texas this weekend and then they literally played next weekend, I think Texas would win, because I think Texas is the better team right now. It's just that I think
if they
that,
stayed the same teams after this game, even if Georgia wins, if they were to stay the same teams and not change and develop and
yes,
progress, yeah,
but
it's
that's
like a
only
yeah.
because I think that you're just playing too good of a team. And people could say what they want, but I think Georgia is going to fix what the problems. I think they're going to be prepared. I don't think they're going to fix every problem, but I think they're going to fix enough. They're definitely not coming out and getting blown out 28-0 in the first half. That's not happening again. And if it does, then Georgia has some serious problems that they need to go into and talk about in that locker room, because that's bad.
Well,
I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think, and I think that's Alabama being one of the most explosive, talented
That too, they're extremely
offenses in the
explosive.
country. I don't
Georgia's
think
biggest
Texas is as
weakness,
explosive as
yeah,
Alabama on offense.
Georgia's biggest weakness in recent years has been dual threat quarterbacks, and Milroe is about as good of a dual threat quarterback as it gets, barring his midfield passing. But Georgia
I
just
mean,
couldn't handle
everybody's
Milroe.
weakness is dual threat quarterbacks. Dual
Well, yeah,
threat
but
quarterback is the meta in college
I think
football. So,
Georgia's going to be able to contain Ewers a little bit better. I think their run game's actually going to see some success Saturday. And I think that they crank out a win because it's one that they really, really need. And Texas, this is just the first real offense they're playing, that actually can move a ball successfully. So I just think
yeah,
that
that's the
it's
biggest
just going to
thing.
be too much for Texas's first big game. I don't think that Texas isn't capable of dealing with this kind of offense. I just think that in this moment, they're not going to be prepared properly because it's the very first time, and it's just going to be. And Bobo's been having Beck sling it like crazy the past couple games too. So I think if Beck goes out there slinging it like crazy, Texas is in trouble.
I think Beck and
So,
Bobo are finding their groove. Honestly, the defense still needs work, and I think that has a lot to do with the schemes and Glenn Schumann.
mhm.
Um, Georgia needs to get Muschamp back on that sideline for the defense. I'll tell you that. But
Yeah. But I think Georgia wins. I think Georgia's going to upset
oh yeah,
Texas this weekend, and I think that they win. I'm honestly looking. I think they win probably by 2 or 3 points, 1 to 3 points. I think it's a 1 to 3 point game. I think it's a, you know,
we got upset
uh,
alert, folks.
so
Wee woo,
so I
wee
think
woo.
I don't even think that it's a Georgia can win. I think a Georgia will win scenario, because I don't know. Over the past, watching Georgia as a team, when they're in this position, they win. So all I
Well,
got to say is that
the
if
only well, I
Georgia,
will
other than
say
Bama, of course,
they
if Georgia can
yeah.
keep, if Texas is within 10 points, if they do not have a 10-point or larger uh, lead going into the second half, I think you lose. Because you do not want to be close to Georgia in the second half. You want to be like Bama and be so far in the first half that it's hell for Georgia to try and come back.
That
Because
shit.
there's no better time that Georgia plays than in the fourth quarter.
And hell,
So, and you can
Georgia
ask
Georgia
Ohio
took the
State, you
lead
can
on
ask
Bama
Alabama.
anyway.
I was going to say,
Georgia
ask
took the lead
Georgia,
in the second
ask
half.
Ohio State, ask Alabama. Georgia is a menace in the fourth quarter. They always are.
They got
So,
down 28-0 against Alabama and still came back and took the lead in the fourth quarter.
yeah.
So,
So that's what another thing people need to remember is that there was a point where there was a point where Alabama had to crawl their way back to win. They
right,
had to crawl.
Alabama's the
They had to.
one that had to make a win. They had to pull it
So
off technically,
Georgia's
but
still a good team, and they can still um like what's the word I'm looking for, perform like they need to. And I just think
that's still an
trusting
elite
Kirby
team,
Smart
and they can
as the
perform
better
at an elite
coach, trusting
level.
Smart, because here's the difference I think between the other game is that Kalen DeBoer also inherited a Saban built team. So, and I don't want to get into the semantics like, oh, Saban this, Saban that, but I mean, still a team that kind of was feeding off of how they beat Georgia last season and all. But this is Steve Sark and Kirby Smart. I think Kirby Smart's a better head coach than Steve Sark. And I think Kirby Smart can build a better team. I think he's going to come more prepared this time. And I think Kirby Smart's going to take a little more of the helm of the defense this weekend as well. Like I think he's probably spending more time with the defense because of how Schumann
We'll
did,
see.
you know. So, uh,
I think
we didn't
Texas
talk about
as
Texas
much.
much because I think Texas just has everything like over Georgia. Funny enough, I literally just think this is a game of Georgia. I just don't think Texas has that light year gap. I think it's a small enough gap that the the mentality is what's going to swing this game. And I think Georgia's going to have the more winning mentality going into this game. So,
Yeah, I mean maybe maybe it ends up being circumstantial and just a cornered animal. Georgia comes into Austin. already being hardened and conditioned at hard, in difficult situations, and yeah, they might catch Texas on their back foot and really cause trouble. I think Texas is as capable and as good as their offense is. I don't think Texas has the same speed in their skill positions and quarterback position as Alabama did. So I think Georgia's defense, as you said, will have a lot better time. It'll be a lot better, a more manageable for Georgia to hold Texas's offense on big plays, and I think big plays are going to be the biggest thing to look for. So if Georgia can prevent Texas from getting big plays, yeah, I think Georgia wins. So I think we got an upset alert, and as Bevo Vic said, Texas right now looks like the better team, but it's just a circumstantial thing that Georgia takes this win this weekend. And if they were both the same team going into the next weekend, Texas would probably win. But let's just see. Georgia's always got that progression. That's part of what being an elite program with a coach like Kirby Smart is. And I think Texas will progress too. Both of these teams are going to be developing more and more throughout the season. So, I mean, Texas and Georgia, they're the ones to look out for. Like Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, and Georgia are still the top four teams that you need to be looking for playoff contention, for championship contention. So those are the championship
Yeah.
contenders, So
And no matter what happens this weekend, hopefully we get a great close game between these two teams and don't get a waste
yeah,
of a
are we
game of
gonna
the
are we
week.
gonna call
So
a point spread?
I said like Georgia like 1 to 3 points. I can't really decide on a spread though.
We'll say
Like
one. All right, the Talk-Ons. We pick an upset for Georgia to beat Texas by 1 point. We are Price is writing it.
well,
All right. Well, that's been the show
we'll
for
see.
today. It's
We'll
gonna
see
be
how
it's gonna
wrong
be
our
a good
predictions
game.
are this time.
I
So
think it's gonna be the most raw game we've seen all season.
I hope so. Being a
Oh
dog
man.
fan, as everybody knows, hopefully, if you watched previously, we're dog fans and we disclose that. Try to be as unbiased as possible. Obviously, I want Georgia to go in there and at least keep it close.
We want
So
Georgia to win, and we only think they're going to win just because of the both teams' capabilities and the circumstance of Georgia going in, what's on the line. But and we talk more about Georgia than Texas because Texas is kind of they don't have the questions Georgia has. There's just more
yeah,
questions for Georgia. Texas is the number one team in the country, so
there's 3 routes for
yeah.
this game, and it's Texas wins close, Georgia wins close, or Texas blows them out. I don't think the other is happening. I don't see Georgia blowing Texas out. So
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Who
I don't
knows,
see
man?
Georgia
College
blowing them
football
out.
Saturday is crazy, and I mean, look, Georgia's if they get that defensive line back with the starters, and Beck and Bobo are on point, and Arian Smith is catching passes, I think Georgia, I think Georgia could run away with a good score. But
If Georgia
then
runs away with
again,
a good score, I don't know what I'll do. I'll do something cool.
but if Georgia, if the play calling, if Bobo lays an egg and
If you
Georgia's
have a slow
defense plays,
start like they did against Bama, then there's no coming back this time.
if
So
we have a slow start and end up in the same or similar boat as they did against Bama, yeah, it's done. Like Texas is taking that. Um, eh, and yeah, if Bobo lays an egg and Glenn Schumann lays an egg, if Kirby's assistant coaches lay an egg in this game, then it's probably Texas will probably blow Georgia out. So it's kind of leaning on the assistant coaches and the kind of game plan they come up with and how they adjust. So
but I just don't think Kirby Smart's going to let this team go in there like that against a game after it's already happened, especially. So that's why I think Georgia's just going to play with a different mentality, and I think they're going to finally hit their stride this game. So
all right. Well, there you have it, folks. You heard it here from the Talk-Ons. This has been our Week 8 episode, the picks and previews episode for Week 8. Um, we're averaging like an hour per episode now at this point, I guess. So, I mean, once again, when we take these breaks and we miss episodes, there's just a lot to cover.
yeah,
So, but I mean, it's hell. It's a college football podcast. It's a podcast. So you either want to sit through the whole hour of podcast or not, I guess. But if you did stay, Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much
watching.
for watching, for
Hopefully
bearing
you've
with us.
watched the other however many episodes we have at this point. I'm not sure.
Watch the
5, I
whole
think.
show, man. But hopefully, we got some fans out there watching. Thank you for watching, guys. And I guess we'll just go on from here. We'll hopefully be able to upload a reactions episode next week, and then picks and previews. Kind of just get back on a consistent track. But we'll see. We're professionals. We know what we're doing,
Alright,
and
we're
we're always
professionals.
objectively correct. We're the best.
Alright, well, yeah, thanks for watching.
This has been Tim Sportons, eh? And
BEVO Vic.
Bevo Vic. Look out, Bevo. Uga's coming to get you.